Welcome to Permeable Minds with Ethan and Yvonne.
Every episode, we'll be bringing you a new topic to share and discuss. Remember, there are no wrong answers, and all we ask is for you to keep an open mind.
We can't wait for you to take part and join in the conversation.
Welcome, everybody, to the first ever episode of Permeable Minds. First of all, we just wanted to introduce ourselves. So my name's Yvonne.
And I'm Ethan.
And we wanted to start by giving a little bit of an introduction about ourselves, who we are, where we come from, and also the motivation behind starting this podcast. Me and Ethan, we came, do you know what? It's pretty much exactly a year since we met. I literally just saw the date.
Oh yeah, no, definitely is. Yeah. It really is.
It's been, almost to the day since me and Ethan met. So I was working for a company and then Ethan joined, was it the 4th?
The 4th, yeah.
The 4th of January, obviously fresh out of the new year. And we started as colleagues and then very, very quickly became friends. And we can explain kind of how our friendship developed. It was over lockdown. I don't even know what bloody lockdown it was. It was 3 at that point.
Already?
It was number 3, yes.
Was it? Wow, okay.
Because it was the start of 2021. So yeah, we didn't meet each other for months. So it kind of all started online. And then when we came to meet each other in person, everything just kind of kicked off and kept going, really. But I feel we would have very different versions of events, Ethan, in terms of where the podcast idea came from and why we wanted to start it as well. So I'm going to be asking you a couple of questions and I want to get your take on it before I say mine. Because I wear my heart on my sleeve. Like I'm very good. Ethan will know this. I'm just a very emotional person. When people meet me, they probably wouldn't think it. Like I'm very much resting bitch face kind of girl. I don't really show a lot of emotion, but I'm going to be the first person to cry when it comes to like a Christmas film or something. Like I watched Home Alone 2 for the first time this year. I say this year, last year. And I was literally bawling my eyes out.
I was bawling my eyes out because you'd never seen it before.
That's also really, really true. So to introduce everybody to us to begin with and who we are, where we come from, just to give a bit of background about myself. So I was born and raised in London, moved to like the Berkshire region, if anybody knows where that is. We could be having listeners hopefully from all around the globe. It's about an hour away from London or so very much England, born and bred my whole life. Me and my other half moved to a small town to basically, it's so much cheaper to buy outside of London. So we bought our own little flat and we've been living here for about 3 years. Not married. We've been together for about 8 years and we are childless. And I wanted to kind of give you guys these little snippets now, because there's going to be some topics coming up where you're going to be like, why is Ethan so passionate about these topics? So I just wanted to kind of set the scene from the outset. And then my background was I did a university degree. So I studied at the University of Portsmouth. I did languages. I lived abroad. So I spent 6 months in Malaga, 6 months in Germany. Have lots and lots of international friends, and some of the best people I've ever met are actually people that aren't from the UK. And what else is there to say? I've had about 4 or 5 roles now. So I've been in 4 or 5 different companies and I graduated about 5 years ago. So just to give you a bit of context about where I am in my life, my situation when it comes to like other halves, the normal pressures in society, the normal questions we're going to get. And that's pretty much me in a nutshell, really. Ethan, do you want to take it away?
I mean, firstly, that's quite a big nutshell. My nutshell is a lot smaller.
I'm sorry. You have the biggest timeline of all. I can never keep up.
But I tell it much quicker, I think.
Oh, okay. Oh, here we go.
Maybe. So, simply, here's the TLDR.
What does that mean?
Too long didn't read. Come on, are you not up on the acronyms used by the web folk of nowadays?
No. I'm sorry if I don't favourite Urban Dictionary on my computer.
No, Reddit's all you need.
Okay, Reddit, here we go.
Anyway, so I was born in China, but I moved to the UK really young, like 1 year old. Grew up in Oxford, please don't dox me. And then, yeah, I kind of did university in London. After university, I actually moved back to China, where I stayed for 8 years. During those 8 years, I did another degree and then worked for a few years before coming back. And I think I've been back in the UK for about 4 or 5 years now. And I think me and Yvonne, we get along really well. We have a lot in common, but we also have a lot not in common. From a purely statistical basis, I'm actually quite a bit older than her, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, that's you saying your grandpa John's over here, but yeah, there's 5.5 years gap.
Yeah. So like, I don't want the listeners to think that we're the same age or anything. We're definitely not. And I am married, so that's a little bit about myself that will come into play basically during the course of this podcast. I think that's basically it. See, much smaller nutshell.
Much smaller, but also, going back and forth from London, China, Oxford. Like, you see where I get confused. How many degrees, how many countries later, I get confused.
Well, literally just 2 of each.
But I'm glad you mentioned the age as well, because it gives, first of all, I really like the dynamic male-female perspective. I think is always really useful. And some of my best friendships I've actually had are the male-female dynamic as well. I really feel there's a very different, maybe it's just me, like very different expectations, very different vibe to female-female relationships, obviously from my point of view. And then I would discuss very different things with my female friends in comparison to my male friends. And then also the age as well. So I always try and say, Ethan's got a couple of more years experience in the workforce. So I feel like he's a better hustler than I am when it comes to the daily grind and navigating the workplace. Because
no, I'm just jaded as fuck.
He's got some tips and tricks up his sleeve that will certainly come into discussion as the podcast develops as well. But in terms of the motivations and why we're here, why we started the pod, this is where I wanted you to explain first.
Okay.
Where the ideas come from, because I have my own perspective, my own story. It'll be really interesting to see if they match or whether we have a completely different idea of where it stemmed from.
Okay, so from my point of view, it all comes from our conversations off pod, I guess. So we have quite lengthy discussions on different topics, and for me, it's hard to find someone who is kind of challenging in moral philosophical terms, I would say. And so I thought this was super interesting, and it kind of made me reflect on why I believe certain things, why I am the way I am in certain respects. And so I think for me, the aim of this pod is to kind of help everyone question things more, basically. Open their minds up to different ways of thinking. Now, you don't have to accept those ways of thinking, but it's all about just kind of posing the questions and making us reflect on certain aspects of our own lives. That's me. That's what I think anyway.
And you think we do that in our relationship, in our friendship?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Very similar.
Okay.
Maybe I'm going to go the long, windy road up to this answer. Who knows? I'm a big waffler, but I also like telling stories as well. So once upon a time, in lockdown number 3, so if we say this time last year, like Jan to June last year, wasn't getting out much. We were stuck in lockdown. So I was doing like I can't really do a commute at home. So instead of just jumping out of bed, getting straight onto the laptop and start tapping away, I would try and do a walk around the block every morning to get my steps in, to get some exercise. And I don't know if you remember, Ethan, but you started sending me, we started sharing podcast recommendations. Mm-hmm. Not only are we big fans of starting our own podcast, but it kind of stemmed from us being such big fans of other podcasts that we were sharing channels and sharing different people. And you're going to have to remind me of his surname, but Sam
Harris.
There we go. Sam Harris's podcast, very heavily philosophical, some pretty deep topics that he covers. I remember listening to Sam Harris's podcast at like 8 o'clock in the morning as soon as I shotted my coffee. What's the name of the pod, Ethan?
Waking Up? No, wait, Making Sense.
Making sense. Waking Up was what I was doing as I was walking around the block listening to him. I was going into my 9 a.m. meeting, like questioning the meaning of life, because I was listening to this guy's podcast before I jumped onto Teams and started my day at work. So I was listening to some pretty heavy topics. It was making me, like Ethan said, it was making me think about life. It was making me think about different things about how I react, how I see the world, different perspectives. And the really good thing about Ethan as well is that every time I would share my ideas, or I would share, oh, I really like this podcast, check it out, or I really like this YouTube channel, check it out. He's probably one of the first people who's ever been like, yeah, sure, I will try it out. And that to me, not only open-minded about trying new things, but also open-minded about the views that I had. And he doesn't necessarily accept everything I have to say, but at least he's willing to listen. And again, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to try and start a podcast with yourself in particular, because one, you are probably the most open-minded person I know. And similarly, because of our discussions that we have, I feel people can chime in and we can get each other thinking and challenge each other like we always do. And it's something I wanted to do with all of our listeners as well. Hopefully they'll get thinking about their own views, their own perspectives, how they think about things and how they interact with others as well.
Yeah. I would like nothing more than someone to change my mind about something. I think that would be amazing, basically.
Which, is it just me? Which most people are like, no, I'm so stubborn. I know, 90% of the people I know are like, I'm so stubborn. Don't change my mind, and wouldn't be open to having their mind changed either.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the aim. The ultimate aim is just to have conversations, open up that dialogue, and just make sure everyone's heard. I mean, we don't, have to go about making wholesale changes to our lives and to the way we act. But if we're open to discussion, I think that can only be a good thing.
Yeah. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I ask a lot of questions. It's my way of getting to know somebody in general. I ask a lot of questions. And then I wouldn't be afraid to like message Ethan at 2 a.m. I don't know, some sort of philosophical meaning of life question as well, being like, oh, what do you think about this event that happened in 1970? Blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, I can open these discussions to him at any time, any point. And you're very non-judgmental. Even if I had the most ridiculous opinion, you'd be like, all right, and I accept that. I can't always say the same for myself.
You definitely don't.
Because there are some things that Ethan consumes that I don't particularly agree with. To give you a prime example, maybe this is just my Britishness through and through, but I think it's absolutely disgusting that you drink Earl Grey. And I'm never, ever, ever going to let that down.
I mean, listeners, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The food topic is a contentious one. It is heated. There have been like battles fought over this topic. And I think we will probably settle it on the pod one day.
Oh, 100%. And we're going to get everybody's opinions involved.
You better get ready for the backlash. I tell you that. I foresee victory in my future.
To be fair, like what you said about you like people to be able to change your mind, I don't mind if I can eat my own words, as long as there's if you have some sort of defense at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. I'm the same way. As long as you can defend yourself. I like to think that I listen to reason.
Yeah.
So Yeah, as long as you can reason with me, it should be fine. So we should talk about why permeable minds. And this is a question I kind of want to ask you, Yvonne, is what does permeable minds say to you?
God, why? I hope this isn't going to be like this the whole entire pod, just throwing me curveballs. What does permeable mind say to me? First of all, it was really hard to get a podcast name that hadn't already been taken. Let's start with that, okay? We wanted to go around the whole open-mindedness. We wanted to go around the whole being flexible, being adaptable, being open to change. And we had a lot of discussions around the word permeable. And I can't even remember where it came up. I remember, okay, this is something really cool. I say really cool, but I remember where I was at certain moments in time, right? So I remember where I was sitting and what I was doing the minute I read the suggestion Permeable Minds.
Okay.
I was at lunch and I was sitting on the comfy little sofa at work and I was overlooking the Reading skyline because I'm on the 7th floor. And I remember eating my whatever the hell it was. I can't remember what I ate. It's probably a cheese sandwich or something. And you suggested Permeable Minds. And I remember it was the only one that kind of stood out to me as like, one, I've never heard of this before. And two, yeah, that's the main thing. And two, permeable. And something that Ethan didn't mention was one of his degrees was actually in biology. So the first thing I wanted to understand was from like a biological perspective, did it mean what it actually meant? Okay, so I was reading some dodgy articles about what permeable could mean, but in the end it basically means, obviously linking it with the word minds, like thoughts can enter and yeah, they can be like scrambled up and changed. You know, you can make them to what you want it to be. It's very moldable. And to me, that's again the ultimate aim, the thing that I really want to try and achieve. Hopefully there's going to be a lot of people that we know and people that are a close friend of ours that are listening to this that are hopefully going to kind of wake up. And if they are listening, I hope they do wake up right now, listen and just be open. Just be open. I'm going to keep repeating this phrase, but just listen to what we're saying. Like we said, you don't have to accept it, but just listen. Don't be so hardline. Don't be so one-sided about things, because that's where I think the permeable minds and also our relationship works, is even if you believe wholeheartedly in one side, being open and being able to see that there is another side to the coin makes a big difference to me and how I perceive you as well. You know, if you're quite closed-minded, you're quite stubborn, those aren't the type of people I'm going to be having the best conversations with either. I don't know if you agree.
No, I completely agree. And yeah, like permeable, you know, the mind being permeable means things can come in, things can go out. It's kind of the inside could be ever changing, and that's kind of what we're aiming for. And I don't want the listeners to think that we're just going to be kind of
preaching
or just trying to hammer home our points. I think one thing that we decided early on before making this is that if both of us hold the same position on a particular topic, then the other one, or at least one of us, will try to be on the other side and kind of bring up points that would kind of counteract that. And not only is it just fun to play devil's advocate, but I think it's also a good exercise in kind of thinking more and being critical of yourself in certain ways.
Yeah, that's such a good point as well, because I don't know about you, Ethan, but I know you weren't unemployed over 2020 at all, but I spent 10 months unemployed, which now to me was such a big part of who I am today. And the only reason why I am the way I am, like I used to be quite closed-minded and quite stubborn a lot of the time. I used to go in with, when interacting with friends and interacting with people, I used to think, here's my advice, take it. You know what I mean? Like, not to say my advice was the right advice. Who was I to say that it was the right advice? But I'm giving you my advice, now take it. And now I go in with a very different approach of, instead of going in with like a hard line saying, right, this is my opinion, this is what I think you should do, rather throwing it back on them them taking ownership. So if somebody comes to me seeking advice, I would never actually give my opinion. I will always kind of open it back to them and say, well, these are the 2 options or 3 options. These are the outcomes. How do you feel if each of one of these happens? More of like a question and answer rather than me kind of hitting home on what I believe and what I think and kind of projecting my own thoughts onto people. And I feel like it's empowering if it comes within, if it comes from yourself. If you feel like you've made that decision yourself, I feel like it empowers you and it encourages you to do it yourself. So I really worked on myself when I was unemployed. There was a lot, I had a lot of spare time on my hands to do this self-reflection and to kind of question my own thoughts, ideas, and interactions, which interestingly, if I would have been the same person 2 years ago, would we be friends? I don't know.
That is an interesting question. I'm glad that we don't really have to answer that because it sounds like you're quite the bitch. But, I mean, possibly, I think there's always something there, right? Like, this friendship was maybe time and place.
Yeah.
Just kind of helped. Maybe it was all coincidence, but.
And that's a topic I also want to discuss at some point as well. You know me, I love a good butterfly effect. Is it written in the stars?
Oh, and I have strong opinions on that as well. I just want to say, I want to preface by saying that neither of us are experts in philosophy or any of the topics that we're going to talk about. You definitely, should listen, but also question what we say. But on that topic, I do fancy myself, as in terms of philosophical views, I would say that I tend towards absurdism.
Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like nihilism. So nihilism is like when you believe that nothing has any meaning, right? Everyone's going to die, nothing has any meaning in the world. Absurdism is kind of like that, but it gives you the option, in my opinion anyway, kind of gives you the option to create your own meaning in certain ways.
Which, weirdly enough, one of the main episodes of Sam Harris's podcast that really sticks out in my head is the one where they were questioning whether you were the author of your own life. Were you the one kind of narrating? Were you the one conducting like everything that happens in your life? Were you the one making like conscious choices? Or is it just being played out and you're just moving along with it?
You mean the kind of determinism versus free will?
So you're the one with the big fancy words here. I'm just describing. This is how it works. Like, Ethan can just read my mind. He can kind of de-jumble all of my bullshit and then put it out in straight terms. This is going to work.
This is going to work, yeah.
De-jumble. That's going to be a new word. That's going to be, is it Oxford Dictionaries, like word of the year, 2022? I'm just going to put that out there right now.
De-jumble.
De-jumble.
De-jumble. I mean, it's a solid word.
Thank you. Because a lot of the time you were the one sharing the more serious philosophical pods with me, I was sending you podcasts like very much lighthearted D-list actors and comedians and sharing their kind of worlds, and eventually they did collide on The Hot Ones, if anybody knows that show. On is it just on YouTube or can it be found elsewhere?
No, I think it's just on YouTube, yeah. First We Feast. Check it out.
There we go. Where did your interest in philosophy come from?
Hold on.
I can ask the big questions as well, okay?
Was not prepared for this question. So I would say philosophy is something that I've never studied. Did not have an interest in it during my education, I would say. Even during my second degree, it was still not a thing. When did it pop up? I think it's when I started seriously reading again.
Okay.
Now, what I love to read, my favorite genre to read is science fiction. And the more I read, the more I realized that they actually tackle a lot of philosophical issues. So that was kind of the beginning, and then I got into a whole rabbit hole of YouTube breakdowns of films and their philosophies, and that it kind of just spiraled from there.
Isn't there a podcast on that?
There are a few podcasts, yeah. Show Me the Meaning is the one that I still listen to. Yeah, no, it's super interesting that you can. Once I kind of opened my eyes to philosophy, I found that you find it everywhere, like literally everywhere. Any kind of creative medium has something that it could be trying to say about life or society. Yeah, and I just find science fiction to be one of the best ways for it to be done because the setting is so out there that it can exaggerate these philosophical problems that people might encounter.
I love how you use the word encounter as well, because that's pretty sci-fi-y as well. Quite like that. Bringing it all together.
But yeah, this is going to be quite a ride, I reckon. This podcast isn't just for you guys. I mean, we will be continually learning as we go along as well. Probably arguing a lot as well.
I'm really looking forward to that. There's not many people I can argue with and probably still be best pals with at the end of the day. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Same. And I hope you guys are as well.
One thing I just wanted to share before we wrap up, Ethan, is one of the quotes that I noted down when we were coming up with ideas for the pod. You know, we did a lot of research. We tried to get podcast name ideas mainly.
Yeah.
But one of the quotes I wrote down, I really wish I knew the source because it really hit home. And at one point we were like, maybe this could even be the name, but it was already taken. But I just wanted to share this with everybody to kind of give them a bit of an insight into our world and into our friendship as well. So philosophy studies all of the wisdom, while psychology studies the soul. So that really hit home to me because Ethan was so interested in the philosophy side of things. To me, not just his age, but also his years beyond his years. He's a very, very wise man in my eyes. And the psychology side of things. So I love people. I like I mentioned at the beginning of the pod, I have a lot of international friends. I'd like to say I have a lot of interactions with different people in work, outside of work. And my role as well is very much customer facing. And there's a reason why I like being customer facing is because I just love interacting with people so much. So I would say I'm very much into the psychology of people. So when it came up about the wisdom and the soul, I was like, that's literally me and Ethan in a nutshell. Let's go. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. And I really feel our different perspectives, our different views, like Ethan said, we do agree on a lot. And we do share similar like values and morals and opinions, but there's a lot that even if we do agree, we're still going to challenge each other because there's going to be not loopholes or pitfalls, but there's going to be things where, especially me, I'm not going to have a lot of reason behind it. I'm just going to be like, yo, this is my opinion. And then Ethan's going to be like, why, etc. So yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to it. And hopefully we can be asking you guys some of these questions and vice versa. Every week, we want you to send in your ideas and your questions as well.
Yeah, we definitely want to hear from you guys. It's not just about us. We want to get you guys involved as well. And I mean, it couldn't be easier. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. Just search Permeable Minds. That's our handle. You could also email us at permeablemindspodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you, hear your thoughts, and let us know what you think of what we're talking about. Let us know if we're wrong. And yeah, we can't wait to kind of get this ball rolling.
100%. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to our first episode. And we look forward to see you on the next one.
See ya.
Bye.